I'm here with writer, actor, and director Billy Hayes, whose story was chronicled in the 1984 movie Midnight Express. Billy got caught smuggling hash and got sentenced to 30 years in prison. Billy served over 4 years in a Turkish prison before he escaped. His new book, The Midnight Express, Letters from a Turkish Prison, is available on Amazon, Kindle, and it's also available on audiobook on Amazon. Billy Hayes, welcome to the show.
Thank you, sir. Nice to be here.
Billy, tell us your story, because I know you can tell a story, so I'm just going to let you roll with it.
How much time do you have? Seriously. How much do you want? 30 minutes, 40 minutes, 3 hours? I mean,
45 minutes. Okay, let's shoot for the 45-minute mark.
Because once I start talking, I get lost and I go off in the direction. So if you can focus me and bring me back, that would be lovely. Otherwise, you'll just hear me babble for
as long as you don't get insulted.
Okay. No, not at all. So I was arrested in 1970, at the Istanbul airport with 2 kilos of prime Turkish hashish, cannabis, legal now, taped all over my 23-year-old body, which led to almost 5 years in prison. And I was able to escape off an island prison in October of 1975. I was busted October 7th, 1970. I escaped October 2nd, 1975. I just missed my 5th anniversary. My sentence was strange because I never really knew what my sentence was. Originally, I received a 4-year, 2-month sentence. But in Turkey, you don't really have your official sentence until it comes down from the high court in Ankara. Until then, you're really in no man's land. For years, I had a 4-year, 2-month sentence, but I never had my tasdik from Ankara, so I was never really sure when I was going free. And it kept changing depending upon some legal stuff would happen in Turkey, or there'd be an amnesty rumor. So I never knew when I was actually going out, which was difficult for me, was way more difficult for my parents. Prison was hard in a lot of ways, but I was 23 to 28 at the height of my physicality. I was young. I was healthy. Back in college, I was an athlete. I used to do some martial arts, just enough to make me dangerous to myself. Because, if you turn around, there's always somebody back there who can kick your ass. But in prison, you have to establish yourself. I was kind of lucky because the first night I got arrested, I ended up in a fight with one of the prison trustee guard kind of guys. Just a slimy guy who dealt hash, and he had no morality at all. He was one of those people, amoral is what he was. And one thing led to another, and suddenly he and I are fighting in my prison cell, my very first night. And I didn't know what was actually going on, and I wasn't sure how to react to this. But next thing I know, this guy is in my face, and I just naturally reacted and hit him. And boom, he went down. It was like, no, because his nose is bleeding. He's screaming for the guards. They're rushing in. They're dragging me out. I'm trying to explain in English, which the guards don't speak. He woke me up. He hit me first. All they know is new guy. First night in a fight. Lesson needs to be taught. And the way they teach it in at least Turkey and a lot of the Middle Eastern countries is a punishment called falaka, where they tie your feet up with a rope and pull them up, and this guy beats the bottom of your feet with a stick, which sounds kind of milk toast, but boy, it hurts. The bottom of your feet, I've got so many nerve endings in them. And he beat my feet and smashing me in like this, and my hands are up, and I was screaming, and he was hitting my arms. I thought he was killing me. Turns out it wasn't a bad beating at all. Nothing broken. If there's nothing broken, it's not a bad beating. Whoa. Just a lot of cuts and bruises, and a very effective lesson about fighting in jail. If you and I are in a fight in a Turkish prison and you're all bloody when the guards come, they beat me equally bloody. If I'm all bloody, they beat you equally bloody. You can't win in a fight because they beat up the other guy. Whoever wins, the other guy gets beat up. So you have to get in, get out, and get away from it before the guards get involved. One of the first lessons I learned in Turkish prison that night. The good thing for me, this guy was sort of a big cheese in the jail. He worked with the guards, and he was an informant, and he ran drugs, all that kind of stuff. The normal life goes on inside the prison, just like it does on the outside. A little more confined and compact, but the same stuff going down. This guy was known around the jail. The next day, he's walking around, and people are seeing Ziad, this big black eye and swollen face, and they're saying, what happened to, I forget, I keep changing the names because in the books, what happened to Ziad? And they said, well, the new prisoner, Willie, which is my name in Turkey, Willie. And then they see Willie I'm 140 pounds. It's like, that guy? But it gave me a little edge because they saw, well, he may be small and skinny, but Ziad's got a big fucking black eye and a swollen face. And Ziad had a little bit of a rep in the jail. Well, that helped me because now if somebody's looking for somebody to mess with, well, that guy, yeah, he beat up Ziad. Let's find somebody else because there's always somebody else that you can find if you're looking for trouble, which people did. But I'm suddenly, just because of my first night fight, I'm suddenly in a little different category. It made prison a little easier for me. People wouldn't mess with me as much if they hadn't seen that I got in a fight the first night and this guy's all bloody. So that helped me out on my first day. 5 years. How can I even start to say what that was like? Turkish prison, it was like...
Well, let me ask.
Sure.
What was the food? What was the food and the medical care in there like?
Food, 3 times a day. About noon, they'd come around. Oh, in the morning, they'd come around, big blankets, big loaves of bread, one for each prisoner. If you get to the door in time, because otherwise somebody will snatch it up. About noon, these big steel pots full of lentils and beans are delivered. Beans. 80 guys locked up together, and every day they serve beans. And then in the evening, they bring around the big pots with some soup or a kofta. Then there's stuff that's stole. Prison is this vast captive market. There were almost 3,000 guys in this prison when I was first arrested. And outside food vendors would come around selling fruits and vegetables, all kinds of stuff, pushed around in these big steel carts, which you could buy if you had money through the door. If people had no money in prison, it was really bad if all you got was what they served you. But otherwise, you could buy stuff. Turkey has an incredible amount of fruits, stuff I don't even know the name of in English, but wonderful fruits. You could buy those things 1 or 2 times a week. The cart would come. So if you had enough money, you could buy something. If you had enough money, you could live like a king. The guys who did have money, the big gangsters, they called them kapadais. These are the gangster prisoners who, for one reason or another, the people they used to bribe on the outside to keep them free got overbribed by somebody else, and now they got to do, a couple of months, and then they work this, and their lawyer works that, and they go free. Not like me and the rest of the idiots who got busted with hash and stuff. We're not Turks. We don't know how the game works. We're in there. So my first call, I went to court, I believe, 14 months before I received my first sentence, which, again, it wasn't a permanent sentence. So I had it, but I didn't really have it. And my lawyers talked to my counsel, the American counsel, told my parents that I've gotten a sentence of 4 years, 2 months, which means I should be going for free on a certain date, but not really because I didn't have my official paper. This harassed me and my family so badly, we never knew when I was going out. My mom would have a calendar and she'd circle something on it. It all changed and it kept changing. I was trying to get an official sentence right up to the very last moment when I was trying to get transferred to another prison. If you receive your official sentence in Turkey, you then have an option of being allowed to transfer to other prisons if you wanted to. I ended up, when my first sentence came down, I ended up getting transferred to an island prison. This was like almost 4 years after I'd gotten arrested. And I had the 4-year, 2-month sentence. It went on. And then I was crossing out days, 56, 55, 54 days prior to going free. The American consul showed up for an unexpected visit. And I'm thinking, yay, the Turks are letting me out early. And as soon as I see his face, I know it's bad news. I'm worried. Somebody at home, somebody's sick. Bad news for sure. Not about me. I'm going free at 54 fucking days. Except the counsel said, Billy, we have some problems. The High Court in Ankara responding to Nixon's war on drugs. That whole beginning of the war on drugs was happening back then, 1973, 1974, while I was in. And Turkey was getting a lot of bad criticism in the American papers and in other places saying that Turkey did not enforce their drug laws. And Turkey took offense to this. And what they did was they said, fine, you don't think we enforce our drug laws? Let's show you what we do. And they chose me and unfortunately 2 American women who were in there for drugs too, who had the same sentence as I did. And they sentenced me to, they gave me a new court. And in the new court, the same judge who originally sentenced me to 4 years back almost 4 years ago when I first got arrested, that judge, he said, I wish I'd retired. This is the judge in the court telling me, standing in the prisoner's docket with my dad standing right behind me, which by far the worst part of prison, the pain I caused my family. My dad's standing behind me, and the same judge, he puts his hands up. He says, "My hands are tied. The High Court in Ankara is forcing me to do this." I'm like, "Forcing you to do what?" And what he did was the High Court sentenced me to muhabbat, which is life in prison. The same judge who originally sentenced me to 4 years, the only prerogative he had was to lower the life sentence to 30 years, which he did. Thanks, I guess, 30 years. And then they were wrapping the chains around my wrists, and the soldiers were talking to me, and the American counsel and the lawyers they all had their eyes lowered, and they're offering me Geçmiş, which is Turkish for "may it pass quickly." I just got sentenced to fucking 30 years in jail. May it pass quickly? The escape switch, which had been on from the first moment I was arrested back at the airport. I've been thinking about escape. I tried so many escape attempts. We'll talk about them. But I had so many. I tried. And at one point, I stopped trying to escape. I realized I was causing so much grief and pain. If I did get caught while escaping, maybe they shoot me, maybe they kill me. They certainly give me way more prison sentence. But I was so desperate, and desperate men do desperate things. What it came down to was, actually, I looked at suicide too. That was an option. I'm the last thing I would ever think about in my life is suicide. But guys try and kill themselves all the time in jail. But if you really want to kill yourself, here's the vein on your arm. Don't slash your up here. That gets you bloody, and it gets you to the hospital, and it gets you sympathy. If you really want to kill yourself, turn it over, slice it here, and go under your blankets and die. That's if they wanted to do. So, I was so desperate, I didn't know what I was going to do. But when I realized the pain I'm causing my parents, the pain I'm causing me, I need to change my ways. I need to change everything. And what I discovered I could do my time in jail. I could take what I needed to do, take the pain off my parents, accept the fact that I was going to be going free 4 years and 2 months. This is while this is happening. So I still have like another, 20 months or something, which seems like forever when you're 22, 23 years old and you've been locked in jail for a few years. 20 more months is like, no, I have to fucking get out. But I couldn't get out, and I couldn't cause any more pain to my family. And I just decided to turn the escape switch off. And that one act changed everything. I remember William James from College Philosophy, William James, who said, people can change their lives by changing their attitude. Whoa. I decided to do that. I decided to change my attitude. So instead of being crazed and trying to get out every day and hating everything that was going on, I just took a breath and kind of accepted the fact that I'm going to be in here for another at least 20 months, and then I'll be free, and then my parents will be happy again. And I just changed my attitude towards the whole world. Prison suddenly became a different place. I was seeing it with new eyes. I totally got into my yoga, which I sort of abandoned after a while. I just let every day pass the way it needed to pass, and I was just part of it. And I wasn't crazed every morning thinking, how am I going to get out? And I didn't go to sleep every night with all this madness in my head. I just calmed down, which seems easy, but wasn't so easy. Not so easy for me, because I'm not a very calm person usually. And I wasn't calm about having to spend all this time in prison while my life was changing and my teeth were falling out. And every night my mom went to sleep every night with pain in her heart. That killed me. That was the worst part of jail. I'm young. I can deal with it. I'm healthy enough. And I made my way in jail. People left me alone. It was like, nobody bothers me. Friends in prison is, you don't fuck with me. I don't fuck with you. We're friends. So I was friends with everybody. Nobody bothered me. I didn't worry too much about the violence around me because people weren't bothering me. And I know now how to handle prison. I know how to deal with shit. I've got friends at the guards who I made. So I knew it was going to be okay. And I started to enjoy prison. How bizarre is that? Just enjoying the fact that the sun is rising to this morning. I'm healthy. I'm not free yet, but I'm healthy. I'm going to be out soon. My parents won't be having to deal with all of this madness every day. And life's changed for me. Almost the last year that I was in jail, I was a very different guy than when I first got in. I'm a writer. I was writing every day. I've got my notes. I didn't interact very much with anybody unless I had to. And my friends in jail, again, friends are, you don't fuck with me. I don't fuck with you. They come, they go. So it's hard to make a friend because tomorrow they could be gone. I just took care of myself. And The hard part there is not getting involved. When I was first in prison, I mean, I'd see something happen and a new guy would come in and all the vultures swoop down on. At first, I'd get involved. I help out a new guy. But then I make an enemy of some other guy. Because, I mean, he's trying to get the new guy to work with his lawyer who's going to rip him off. I know that. Somebody else is trying to get the new guy. No, work with my lawyer. Everybody's after you when you first get in there. I just helped the new guy, kind of gave him some good advice. But then the other guy is not going to get to work with him for his lawyer. So now the other guy is pissed at me and like, I don't need to create any more fucking enemies here. So I stopped. After a while, I could see terrible things happening and just look away. And when you ignore another human being's pain, it's at a cost to your own humanity. That's why so many guys coming out of prison are hardened in ways that they can't change or broken in ways they can't fix. I get lost when I start talking about this stuff again. Where am I? Where am I? Yeah.
I saw you on another interview explain that at one point when you decided you were going to escape, you had a friend, Norman, from the outside who was going to try to help you get out.
Yeah. One of my many escape plans, I used to have acid, LSD, sent to me in prison, sent to me under the little par avion stickers on the letters. Some amateur philatelist up in the censor's office would steal the cool foreign stamps. They had all the foreigners in one cell, Turks mixed in, but 18, 19 different languages. And so the people up in the censor's office, they don't speak, they don't know what's in these letters, but they like the foreign stamps. So they would steal the foreign stamp, the little par avion sticker, little tiny rectangular sticker. You could put about 10 tiny hits of window pane acid, LSD. I used to like LSD. You had about 10 panes under this little sticker. So you put 2 or 3 stickers on, and one of them's got 10 hits of window panes under. So the guy up in the office would steal the cool foreign stamps, and then they send the letter in. And I get the letter, and I open it up, and I take the 10 hits of window pane out. I had some in there, and I was gathered. It's just part of life. I used to like where I went with LSD, othering window pane because, one, I wanted to trip every now and then in jail. Also, more importantly, I was gathering a stash. One of my many escape plans was to get transferred to a prison in far eastern Turkey. It takes about 2 days to get there by bus and train. And if a prisoner gets transferred to another prison, they assign 2 soldiers to him to be his guards to take him there. What the soldiers are told immediately is, if this guy escapes, you serve the rest of his sentence. I got a 30-year sentence to serve my 30-year sentence. Whether they would do it or not, I don't know. But I had these things set up. These 2 soldiers are watching me. They are not going to let me escape because then this was one of my plans, was to go there in the midst. I would take some of these acid things. I put them in slice open a little chocolate bar, and I'd put it in there and then close it up again. I'd find some way to get this acid into one of these or 2 of these soldiers while we're heading east to put me in this other prison in far off eastern Turkey. That was one of the plans. Another plan was Bakırköy Mental Hospital, Section 13 for the criminally insane. I learned there's a clause in the Turkish law that says if you're judged to be crazy, they can't keep you in prison. But if you're that crazy, they don't put you out on the street. They put you in Bakırköy. But that's the better place to escape from. So I bribed the prison doctor, big bakshish, and arranged to get sent to Bakırköy for 2 weeks, or 3 weeks actually, of observation amidst the madness. I've been a lot of places in my life. Nothing even compares to Bakırköy Mental Hospital, Section 13 for the criminally insane. When they took me out there, I was in a prison van chained to this drooling, babbling young kid with vomit all down his front. And it was like dark when the van pulled up in front of this massive iron gate set in a crumbling gray wall topped off with rusting barbed wire, surrounding what supposedly had been a barracks for the Sultan's Janissary troops back during the Ottoman Empire. That's how old this place was. But it was a better place to escape from. So me and the crazy guy, they took me in, and an old guy came out from the grizzled old attendant came out from a little metal door in the big metal gate and led us across a dusty courtyard to this low-slung, whitewashed building. And inside, it feels like I just stepped into that Boris Karloff film, Bedlam, where the inmates bricked the doctor up alive in the wall. There was no semblance of a hospital here. Just this crumbling bin full of filthy, broken men, some stark naked, others wandering around wrapped in filthy sheets, and this mad mix of shouts and moans and weird singing. I spent about 2 weeks there. Again, at the end of 2 weeks, I was I was questioning my own sanity. In the movie Midnight Express, they got a wonderful scene where they got me walk in the basement of the madhouse. They have a stone pillar, and around it, about 20 or so of these crazy inmates would march in a big circle around and around and around. This is the bottom of the birdcage. I slipped right in, circling with them around and around. All I wanted to do was spend my time here, get a crazy report so that I would have more time here. And then I was contacting my friend, Norman, my best friend, who he was going to come and help me get out. So I wrote some letters to him. I was in Bakakoy. I did the circling. I spent 2 weeks in Bakakoy, 2.5 weeks actually in Bakakoy. And then finally, and if I had somebody on the outside who I can trust, that was my out. That was my escape. But he was ready to drop everything to come and help me escape. So we wrote letters back and forth. And then Norman showed up at the prison and we talked and coordinated. He went back to Mannheim, Germany. He's gotten a good job in the John Deere tractor factory, making the money we'll need and organizing for the big break from the madhouse. For Norman, this was an adventure like the Count of Monte Cristo. He's a man on a mission and a truer friend I could not find.
Hey, sorry, we've hit a technical issue with what Billy was recording on. I'm going to reconnect it with him in the coming weeks, and we will have another episode out here. I'm really sorry, but I figured I'd put this out. Something is better than nothing. And as always, I'd like to thank everyone for tuning in, especially my listeners in Hampton, New Hampshire, Beaverton, Oregon, Alexandria, Virginia, Kitchener, Ontario, McDonough, Georgia, and Adeline, South Australia. If you worked in law enforcement or had an interesting criminal background, please drop me a note on Twitter or Instagram at VicFerrari50. If you're watching on YouTube, please hit the like and subscribe buttons. And if you enjoy the content, please check out my Amazon author page where you'll find my series of behind-the-scenes NYPD books, the $10 paperback or $2.99 ebook download, and you can preview them all for free. Thanks again, everybody, and I'll see you next week.